Hey everyone, it's been a while since I've done one of these videos. Thought I'd bring one to you. I wanted to talk a little bit about this concept and this idea that this Iran conflict is somehow Israel's war, and the U.S. has no business being involved in it. It makes for a nice anti-Semitic headline. It pins Israel as the cause of the war, as if Iran were this, benign country just kind of sitting there on its own, and it has nothing to do with us here in the U.S. And I'm going to get to that part because that's a huge misconception. So let us go ahead and look at some of the facts about this. When you look at Iran, you have a country that is dominated by the Shiite Muslim population. Now, for those of you who aren't as into world religions as others, the Shiite Muslims believe in something called the 12th Imam, which is that their Imam was basically taken up by Allah. He disappeared, and he is going to come back. Basically, the world is going to fall into conflict. There's going to be this great war all over the face of the globe. Everyone is fighting, and he will come back to set the world to right and restore Islam as the hegemonic power of the world, and everyone will understand that Islam is the true religion, and that's how this is supposed to work. Well, understanding that, you begin to understand why Iran in particular has no issue with starting wars, starting proxy wars, bombing people, missiling people. Literally, it's as if, imagine if in the Bible we believed that Armageddon had to happen in order for Christ to come back, not that Christ comes back and a result of that is Armageddon, but that we had to actually create Armageddon in order to get Christ to come back. That would be the difference. And so, whereas Christianity says, this is a repercussion of the return of the Messiah, Islam says we have to create this in order for our Messiah to return. And their 12th Imam is their version of Messiah. Not to get all religious on you, but you can't understand this whole fight, this whole concept, without understanding the religious backing to it. So when you understand this about the Shia Muslim population that dominates Iran, as opposed to the Sunnis in Saudi Arabia and most of the other countries around the Middle East, you understand that martyrdom, death, war, and all of these things are a huge part of who they are and what they do. Now, that puts us in a tough place, and this is something that President Trump has tried to explain. What do you do with a country who doesn't fear, and not just a leader, but an entire country who doesn't fear war, civilian death, any of these things? There's this, and now I do want to be fair here. Iran, one of the common misconceptions about Iran is that it's an Islamic nation. It's not. It's an Islamic occupied nation. Only about 30% of Iran's population, or the Iranian people, are Muslim, and of those, only about, I think the last thing, it's 60% of them to 65% of them are Shiite. So even the 30% that are Muslim, only half of them, roughly, are of the Shiite faith. So you really have this small group, kind of the tail wagging the dog, if you will allow me that term. So go with me here, but all the people who are making the important decisions, are they going to go to war? Are they going to fund these proxies? Are they going to this? Are they going to that? Well, that's all being done by the people of this religious cult who believe that in order to bring back the Messiah to earth, they must start this war and create this chaos and this battle, which is part of why you have this sect of radical Islam. So if you look at
Car
Hamas,
on shoulder reported ahead.
you look at the Houthis, you look at Hezbollah, and even to a certain extent you look at Al-Qaeda, you look at ISIS, the Muslim Brotherhood. These are all from this sect of Islam that believes that war is not only inevitable, it is preferable. So when you understand this about the Iranian regime, then you have to ask the uncomfortable question that Trump is forced to ask. What happens if this Iranian regime gets a nuclear bomb? Now, other countries have nuclear bombs, but the deterrent to using them is we don't want to die. Not only do we not want to die, but we don't want our people to die. You know, if our people are gone, we have no country, blah, 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 blah. So there's this natural deterrent to having and using nuclear weapons. But what happens if nuclear weapons fall into the hands of those who don't care if they live or die, of those who don't care if their people live or die? This is a whole new dynamic, and it's something that up until now we haven't really had to face or deal with the specter of. You know, Russia has nuclear weapons. Putin wants to live. China has nuclear weapons. Xi wants to live. India has nuclear weapons. Pakistan has nuclear weapons. But Modi and the Pakistani clerics all want to live. So that kind of gives you a natural deterrent to why those people would choose not to use their nuclear weapons. But Iran has the exact opposite calculus. Iran wants the war. Iran wants the conflict. They want the death and destruction and people dying and blood in the streets and everything else, because to them, that's how they bring about the return of their Messiah, and they bring about all of these things that lead into what they believe will be the golden age of Islam, peace on earth, you know, because everybody's Muslim and all of these things. Now, Trump has to look at this and say, can we as the West afford a nuclear-armed Iran? Can we have these weapons in their hands? And he's answered pretty convincingly, no, we can't. We can't afford that. And if you ask the other leaders of the other countries, they all say the same thing. Iran cannot possess a nuclear weapon. They just aren't willing to do anything about it. But that's another video. That's a whole nother topic of conversation. These other people are just, you know, we can call them cowards. We can call them all kinds of things. I've got a lot of words. Most of them I don't want to use. But there's a lot of things that could be said about people who see the problem but refuse to do anything about it. These people who still believe that you can be diplomatic with countries like Iran, ostriches who bury their head in the sand and try to say diplomacy works. Well, diplomacy works when you're dealing with people who have a natural tendency to want to avoid war and to live. Diplomacy doesn't work when the people you're trying to be diplomatic with desperately want the war. And that's what people don't understand about Iran. They don't understand their religion. They don't understand the fundamental underpinnings of their society, at least at the leadership level, and so they don't get what's going on. Now, the accusation is made that somehow this is Israel's war because of the proxies, because of October 7th, because of this, because of that. This is Israel's war, and it doesn't affect us. Well, first of all, Israel's our ally. That should be enough right there. But there are this extreme right isolationists who are just getting ridiculous. Well, they've been ridiculous, but they're getting even more ridiculous. And I hate to have to call things out because, it's not always comfortable or nice to people to call them out, but, at this point, it kind of has to happen. They think that somehow, because we have an ocean between us and Iran, that we're protected, that we're somehow, like Trump said in his speech, to Zelensky, there's an ocean between us. Missiles fly over oceans. Terrorists who put bombs in backpacks can get on planes, boats, and all kinds of other things to get all kinds of places. Guys, this illusion that we are somehow protected simply because we are, here in America, and this is all happening in the Middle East. The world doesn't work like that anymore. Our weapons don't work like that anymore. The powers of the world don't work like that anymore. This idea that you can isolate your country doesn't work anymore. The construct of the world and how it works doesn't allow for that anymore. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So they want to say that this is Israel's fight and only Israel's fight. Well, again, Israel's fight is for Israel to stay alive. Okay? And that's Israel's fight. Our fight is we can't have nuclear weapons in the hands of Islamic fundamentalists who believe that the best thing that can happen in the world is nuclear war and casualties in the untold numbers, because that's what will trigger the return of the 12th Imam. Guys, I don't know how to make it any more plain to you. We're not dealing with Saudi Arabia, okay? If this idea that this is Israel's war would make a lot more sense if we were talking about a Sunni Muslim nation. If we were talking about Saudi Arabia, or if we were talking about Kuwait or UAE or somebody like this, then that accusation would actually make sense. The problem is that's not who you're dealing with. And because people don't understand the religion that we're fighting, because that really is what's going on here, they don't understand the ramifications of that which they're attempting to critique. Now, let's talk about why this is more than just Israel's war, because that's always it's Israel's war, it's Israel's war, it's Israel's war. Well, okay, except how many times has Iran killed Americans? Not Israelis, Americans. And this is where somebody says, well, if we didn't support Israel, they wouldn't be doing this to us. That is a load of baloney. They hate us not just because we support Israel. They basically call us the cultural colonizers who corrupt Muslim peoples all over the world. And even if we didn't support Israel, they would still be looking to take us out. Okay, they call us the great Satan, not the lesser Satan. Israel's not the great Satan, and we're the lesser Satan who supports them. We're the great Satan, and Israel is the lesser Satan who just happens to support us. Guys, do you get that? Like, do you understand what's being said here? Israel is doing its best to stay alive against Iran, but Iran isn't even really focused on Israel in the ultimate sense. They're focused on us. Israel's the appetizer. We're the main course. We're the ones that they want to take out, not Israel. And when you understand that reality, when you understand that we are the focus of Iran, not Israel, you have to change your calculus. You have to begin to say, okay, so what then is the problem? You know, it's not that we don't have peace with Iran because of Israel. It's that we don't have peace with Iran because Iran hates us. And they also hate Israel. All of these Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, nonsensical craziness always assumes that if we didn't support Israel, that Iran would not be coming after us. Like there's some kind of quid pro quo going on here of we support Israel, therefore they hate us. And that's just completely false. They hate us, period. They hate Israel, period. The two have nothing to do with each other. They're going to hate us regardless of Israel. They're going to hate Israel regardless of us. They just happen to hate us both, and we happen to be allies. And once you understand that, you can't turn around and say, well, if we didn't support Israel, if we just kept to within the nation of America, they would leave us alone. No, they're never going to leave us alone. And this is the nation that's pushing on towards a nuclear bomb. And you add that, you factor that all in with their religious extremism and their belief in the 12th Imam and all of these, apocalyptic things that they have to make happen. And guys, this is bad stuff all the way around. All the way around. So Trump had to make a somewhat impossible decision. And in my opinion, he's made the right one. What do you do when you're stuck between a rock and a hard place? You choose the lesser of two evils. And going to war with Iran to stop them from getting nuclear weapons is definitely the less of the two evils. But when you listen to these anti-Semitic people who want to tell you that Israel's running the world and AIPAC is this, conspiracy group that's just, keeping people so the United States keeps giving money to Israel, they always seem to conveniently forget that Israel supports us too. This is not a one-sided thing. Yes, we give money, but Israel gives intelligence, Israel gives technology, Israel gives us a hedge in the Middle East and fights wars in the Middle East that we otherwise would have to fight. Because again, come back to the point, it's not that they hate Israel and they hate us because of Israel. It's they hate us, period. They hate Israel, period. They would hate us without Israel. I don't know how long I need to let that sink in, but you have to understand that. They don't hate us because of Israel. They hate us, period. They hate Israel, period. And so when Tucker Carlson gets on and talks about, UAE, or he gets on and talks about Riyadh and Saudi Arabia and all these places, he never acknowledges that there's a massive difference between the two sects of Islam, how they believe, and especially their eschatology, their view of the end of the world. And that's kind of important, because when you're being told that your role in the end of the world is to create a global war in which everybody's dying in order to bring back the Messiah, well, that's an important eschatology to understand. The reality is, Israel's been fighting our war with Iran as our proxy in the area for decades. Their people have been dying. Their civilians have been getting hit by the rockets. Their infrastructure has been destroyed. They've been the ones losing people, soldiers, and all of these things, so that Iran isn't over here doing the same thing to us. Because let me tell you something. If Israel disappeared tomorrow, Iran wouldn't stop. They'd simply go after the great Satan. Now that we've dealt with the lesser Satan, we got to deal with the bigger Satan. And all these things going on in Israel, they'd be going on here. We've already got Islamic attacks just in New York the other day. Allahu Akbar. I mean, guys, to blame Israel for Iran shows a complete lack of understanding of culture, religion, and everything going on in the Middle East. So I'm sorry for those who are absorbed in the Tucker Candace camp, who think Nick Fuentes is a prophet from on high. Guys, that's the silliest. That whole cabal of cult of personality is just sick and twisted and demented, and they get it wrong. Period. Anyway, I got to get inside, but I just wanted to share a quick one with you. Thanks, guys. I know it wasn't all that quick, but we'll catch up with you another time.